Come here, I wanna wipe that perfect smile on your face. I'm just addicted. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you have not been here before, my name is Debbie. I read a lot of books. Hello to the people who have subscribed, quite possibly because of my shorts. So if you've come for the sketches but also stayed for the books, nice to see you. I finished Bridget Jones's Diary, the first book. I have never read the books before. Love the films, somehow managed to completely escape reading the books, and I absolutely loved it. And you can feel your watch vibrating, but it's not actually doing anything. I think this was probably just as good as the movies, to be honest. It's on par with each other. I loved it. Anyway, blurb time. Meet Bridget Jones, a 30-something singleton who is certain she would have all the answers if she could A. lose 7 pounds, B. stop smoking, and C. develop inner poise. 123 pounds. How is it possible to put on 4 pounds in the middle of the night? Could flesh have somehow solidified, becoming denser and heavier? Repulsive, horrifying motion. Alcohol units 4, excellent. Cigarettes 21, poor, but will give up totally tomorrow. Number of correct lottery numbers 2, better, but nevertheless useless. This is such a good book. I mean, it is dated, but that's kind of the point of it, I think. This is a contemporary general humorous romance and contemporary fiction, as I say contemporary twice, 336 pages. So I have got The Edge of Reason lined up already, and then I've also got Bridget Jones's Baby and Mad About the Boy on here, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Oh, they've got it on audiobook. Who's narrating the audiobook? Imogen Church is narrating the audiobooks. Ooh, that's interesting. The fact that there are characters that never made it into the films is quite impressive. Like, in the books, Bridget has a brother called Jamie. There's no sign of him in the movies. Absolutely no sign. There's also another friend in the friend group called Rebecca who doesn't make it to the screen. Yeah, it's interesting to see the things that did make it versus didn't make it. And also I love the fact there's references to both Hugh Grant and Colin Firth within the pages of this book. So obviously it wasn't that difficult to get Colin Firth on board. Interesting that they managed to get Hugh Grant in the film based on what's spoken about him in the book. But to be honest, I think he's actually quite... I mean, he's quite self-deprecating anyway, is Hugh Grant, and he's just gotten better with age anyway. So maybe it was just a thing of just like, yeah, that was something that happened, you know, fair game. Because when Bridget goes into television and starts working for the news, I say news loosely, because it's more like celebrity entertainment and stuff. Yeah, there is a reference to Hugh Grant and Elizabeth Hurley. And that night in, was it in Los Angeles, where it happened? Where he paid for someone for sex. There's reference to that in this book, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, maybe he was just like, yeah, it was just something that happened and fair game, but I'll still love to be part of the movie. Because I think, was there an extra scene done for the film of Bridget interviewing Colin Firth as Colin Firth, rather than obviously him playing Mr. Darcy? But there are references to Colin Firth playing Mr. Darcy. It was just so good, it was so funny, and it is interesting reading it having already watched all the films, because when you read a book, well, at least when I read a book, I'm quite a visual reader. Like, I'll create like the images and the movie in my mind as I'm reading, as my brain comes up with what I think these people would look like. When you do it the other way around and you've seen the movie and then you read the book, my brain puts those people into those parts. So as I was reading it, I was imagining Renee Zellweger as Bridget, Hugh Grant as Daniel. Everybody from the movie whose characters were accounted for, I was putting those actors into these parts in my head as I was reading it. But I must admit, kind of plot-wise, it is fairly different. They changed more than I realised, and the way that things come out, like how you find out about what happened with Daniel and Darcy's wife. It's enough for you to understand the adaptation, but at the same time, things are taken out of order and things are changed. So I do wonder how people who were fans of the books reacted to the changes that were made for the film. I imagine if I had read this first, there would be quite a lot that I'd be there going, oh, why didn't I make it in? Because there were some things from this book, as I was reading, it was just like, that would have been great if they adapted that for the film, but they didn't. But I do love the film. I love all the films, to be fair. I know people say that the second film isn't as good. I still find it highly entertaining, the second film. I know it's not everybody's favourite film, but I still think it's a good film. I still think it's really funny. And the fact that the fight is not actually in the pages of the book, and yeah, it's one of the best parts of the film. So good that they recreate it in the second film. It's just so good. But yeah, like, it does feel of its time as somebody who grew up not really seeing my body shape in the media. It's become more acceptable because, like, as I have gotten older, I found out that I used to be in denial of my body shape, which is an hourglass, and people say, oh, it's so rare, nobody's a true hourglass, and it was just like, well, I have broad shoulders, I have a small waist, I have big hips, as I found out in 2020. I also have hip dips, which does not change the fact that I am still an hourglass figure. But when I was younger, I was completely in denial of that and thought I was a pear shape. I hated my shape. I really hated anything that showed off the difference between my waist and my hips. I remember doing a shopping trip between my mum and my sister, and them putting me in this gorgeous dress that really showed off my curves. And I was in such denial about my body shape, I absolutely hated it. And now I'm older, I'm just like, I'm doing more to kind of embrace my body shape. And so, yeah, as a teenager, I was just, as somebody who grew up through the noughties, where there was a certain shape that was idolised, and anybody who didn't fit that was considered fat, even if they weren't. I can imagine how difficult this book would have been to read, especially because throughout the book, she is like 9 stone, and it's just like, that isn't even my goal weight for me. Me at 9 stone sounds horrifying. Like, I cannot imagine myself being 9 stone and thinking I was fat. And obviously in this book you're never told how tall Bridget is. You're not really told much about what she looks like, other than the fact that she is hell-bent on getting under 9 stone. And so, by today's standards, as you read it, you're there thinking, she's not even fat. There are references to, like, binge eating and smoking a lot, and her cheers when she loses a couple of pounds, and then her when she realises that she's put on a little bit of weight. And so this is a character that is focused so much on her weight, and they don't even shy away from that in the movies. It's a big part of that. I mean, because in the movie it was a big deal that Renee Zellweger put on weight to play Bridget, and she still wasn't overweight for her height by the BMI standards, which, by the way, is a load of bullshit for women. It was done with white men, and does not take into account at all the different ways that women hold on to fat and the different distributions of weight in women. I mean, we all know about the different body shapes. You've got your rectangles, you've got your pears, you've got your apples, you've got your hourglass, and it's just like, that should be evident enough that BMI does not make any sense when it comes to looking at the health of women. And pretty much as I understand it, I think its waist to hip ratio is the most accurate when it comes to women's health. Yeah, for women, a healthy waist to hip ratio is considered to be below 0.85. I think mine's actually 0.8 exactly, actually. A waist to hip ratio of 0.85 or higher is associated with increased health risks, such as heart disease, insulin resistance, and other conditions linked to overweight and obesity. So yeah, that is supposed to be a better indication of health in women than BMI, which is a load of shit for women. It really is. And for someone like me who, you know, I'm the daughter of a mixed race woman. My mum's side of the family is from the West Indies, so by a lot of standards, I don't fit into what is considered a white woman. I am white, but technically I'm also mixed as well. But yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is that if you're a woman, do not listen to BMI in the slightest. If doctors are still using it for women, they really need to be brought up to date, because it's not an indicator of women's health. It's BMI. So if you're being told that you're, as a woman, that your BMI is indicating that you're overweight, do your own research and figure out if that's actually right, because there's a good chance that your BMI actually has nothing to do with it. Because it's a load of shit when it comes to women and completely outdated. So yeah, I've got a complete tangent about BMI. But yeah, it's just the fact that in the book, obviously, you never get given an actual description of Bridget. You're never told how tall she is. So, but then even, I mean, you'd still have to be very short for 9 stone to be considered overweight. I want to Google it. So 4'11" would be a point where 9 stone would be considered a slightly overweight. So Bridget would have to be short for her to be considered overweight at the weight that she is describing herself as being overweight as in the book, which, as I said, it's never specified how tall she is. I feel like I'm spending an unusual amount of time talking about this, but I think it's because it's such a big part of the book and the movies about just how fat she feels, because obviously it's all through her eyes, so it is entirely on how she feels herself and what she sees in the mirror. So you do have that unreliable narrator slightly, because, as I said, you know, because it's on through her eyes, you never ever actually get a full description of Bridget. You don't find out how tall she is, so, you know, she might be short, she might be tall. I mean, how tall is Renee Zellweger, who played the part in the films? Renee Zellweger is 5'3", so pretty average really. 5'3" or 5'4" is how tall she is, which is supposed to be kind of like the average height for women, isn't it? I think I'm slightly taller than that, I'm like 5'6" myself. Even for something that feels a bit dated in regards to some of the language used, and because it reminds me of growing up in like the late 90s, early noughties, where we weren't quite as inclusive when it came to women's shapes and sizes, which, to be fair, we're still not completely there really. We are still an extremely judgmental society, and yeah, it's just, even within the pages of the book, you still fall in love with Bridget though. She is so funny. One thing I did feel is that I feel like with the movie adaptation, I feel like Bridget was slightly smarter in the books. I felt like they made her a little bit more ditzy for the films, because I feel like a lot of, I mean, I know it adds to the kind of the charm of the character as well when she does mess up, but I feel like she doesn't actually mess up as much in the books as she does in the films, and I think it is for the comedy element. I just thought that she came across not as ditzy in the book, and you can tell that she's very smart. And yeah, there is a mention about like football and stuff where what was it about? There is a football comment in there which it took me a second to get what was happening. It was like, oh yeah, it's with a comment about like the throwing the games and things. Yeah, the wording of it took me a second. It was just like, oh. Yeah, it has a couple of those kind of like almost slightly blonde moments, but at the same time, movie Bridget is just slightly ditzier than book Bridget. But as I said, you know, I still adore this book. I loved the fact that because obviously in the film you only see the one birthday meal, and in the book there's 2 birthday meals that go wrong. Yeah, just things come out in different ways, and I feel like the movie really did lean into the fact that they had both Colin Firth and Hugh Grant, and they really lent into trying to make sure they had more screen time, because in the book Daniel and Mark Darcy don't actually have that much of an overlap. So yeah, I felt like it was trying to make sure that these 2 people were on screen a bit more to really play into that, because I can't imagine the movie being as faithful to the book and still working. But that is under the influence of the Bridget Jones movie being out for so long, and you just can't imagine it any other way. Yeah, I'm going to shut up because I feel like I've been waffling on. But ultimately, even though it is slightly dated, and it really does make me think about a time of growing up with people being so judgmental about women's bodies, and I mean, like, I still have my battles in the, like, when I look at myself in the mirror and can I connect in my brain what matches inside with what I see in the mirror. I was 7 when the book came out. God. Oh, it was the year that I moved to Yorkshire, was 96. It says it covers a year, but I swear there's 2 birthday dinners that it covers, so it must be slightly more than a year. The big thing for me is how different the story is about her parents. Like, the storyline with Bridget's mother is completely different in the book because obviously in the movie you've got her mum and Julia, and she goes off and be on TV and stuff, and then she comes back. In the book, there's a whole fraud thing going on to the point where her mum is actually, like, her mum disappears with Julio. Is it Julio or Julius? Because they've been selling timeshares that don't exist. Like, she's a wanted woman in the books. It's just like, this is completely different as to like what I know from the movie. Yeah, there's so many differences, but also there's also that main thing of like the main bit of Bridget that's still there. If you have not read the book but you have watched the film, I think you will love it just as much as the film. You'll just be aware that it widens that network a little bit more of Bridget. As I said, you know, you've read a bit about her brother. Her friend group is slightly bigger because they got rid of somebody for the film, and it's just, everything is just on a slightly different timeline. And then also, you've also got that whole story going on with her mother, which is completely different. Yeah. I do need to shut up now, because I feel like I've been talking forever. But yeah, Bridget Jones's Diary. I loved it. I thought it was so good. I couldn't put it down. I feel like I read it so quickly. And I want to watch the movie again now. Just to see Hugh Grant and Colin Firth and Renee Zellweger's face and everybody that was in it, because you have to admit, even with Renee Zellweger being from Texas, anybody who is English, it's one of those proper English movies where you know pretty much everybody in the cast, and I love a good British movie where it's just like, you've just got royalty in there. British movie royalty. I mean, you've got Jim Broadbent, you've got Gemma Jones as the parents, obviously you've got Hugh Grant and Colin Firth in there, and then you've got like Celia Imrie playing Aunt Una. And there's just so many good people in the movie. This has very much become a book versus movie, which was obviously going to happen when I'd already watched the movie like 1,000 times at this point. But it was so good to finally read the book, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of them. But yeah, Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. I think I even said that. Yeah, that is the front cover of the version that I read on BorrowBox. There is also the audiobook version of everything on here as well, and it looks like all of them are narrated. Oh wait, no, the final one is read by Samantha Bond. You gotta love Samantha Bond. But the other ones are all read by Imogen Church. But they do have all 4 of them on BorrowBox, for me at least anyway. So yeah, I'll be doing The Edge of Reason next, and then there'll be Bridget Jones's Baby. That is such a good film. It's so funny. And then book 4, Mad About the Boy, which I think, do we think there's going to be any more? I doubt it. I feel like we've just gotten to a point when, I mean, because the most recent film, I cried so much. It is so good. It might be a while until I can watch it again. But it had I felt like it had such a good ending for Bridget, that one, that I don't think it needs any more. Which is sad to say, but I feel like it's gotten to the point, because in the recent movie, there's no comments about her weight. It's like she doesn't care. Is it that she's reached her goal, or is it just that she doesn't care anymore? And I like to think that it's just that she doesn't care. But then again, that's a judgment of the movie, so I haven't read that book, so I don't know if there is any reference to her weight in the final book. But I like the fact that there wasn't any comment about it in the movie. Anyway, but yeah, so that was Bridget Jones's Diary. As I said, I feel like it's on equal par with the film, is the book, because it's got its differences, but there is still kind of like that core message, that there's still a lot of the story that made it in. And so I don't think either one is better than the other. I think they're just as good as each other, and I feel like it's quite a good adaptation, even with the changes. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, and then I'll see you next time with another video. Stay safe, everybody. I love you all. Bye. Yeah. Oh, I was like, throw my phone across the room.